When Rossini was 18 and a student at the Bologna Conservatory, he was offered an opportunity by the Teatro San Moise in Venice to compose 4 one-act operas. Theaters in Italy often did this to encourage young composers to get their feet wet and for little cost, since they were typically produced with very little budget. La Scala di Seta, or The Silken Ladder, was one of these operas. It premiered in 1812, and it was a big hit. Rossini was born in Pesaro in 1792, and he was the classical child prodigy. His family called him another Mozart. His father was horn player at the local opera house. When he was 6, his mother became a professional opera singer. She would take her young son with her as she performed around Italy, and so he had a great opera education from a very early age. The opera world was in a creative lull since Mozart, except for Fidelio, of course. Rossini would become the first composer of the next generation of great operas. This was the era of bel canto. These operas were designed to showcase the beautiful voices of the singers. Short comic operas known as farces were very popular. The Silken Ladder is such a farce, and opera goers loved the good time that it provided. Scala di Seta eventually faded from view, but recently has had a significant revival all over the world. It is often restaged to make it more timely. The overture has always been an orchestral favorite. The oboe part is particularly challenging and is often used as an orchestral audition piece. It's interesting that the term farce comes from the Latin farsa, which means stuffing. It originated in the Middle Ages, when singers would improvise comic interludes that were stuffed into religious cantatas. The Commedia dell'arte was part of this tradition. Farces were typically small, with casts of 5 or so, involving 2 pairs of lovers, a serious character to make fun of, and a comic character who was often a servant. The ability of the singers to be funny often exceeded their ability to sing, but Rossini was one of the first to elevate the singing to a high level. Also, Rossini's characters, unlike those of other composers, actually have individual personalities, unlike the usual stick figures of farces. Farces were set in one location and took place practically in real time. They were often reworkings of other operas. This one, for example, is based on a French opera by Pierre Gaveau and Eugène de Planade. It premiered in 1809, and this version of the story is still being performed in France. Rossini's libretto was based on the French libretto and was written by Giuseppe Foppa. When you think of what was going on in Europe in 1812, you can see why people craved this comic relief. People often find opera plots ridiculous, and in this case, they are right. I put together a series of video clips from a performance at the Pesaro Rossini Festival in 1988, and will use them to give you a heads up on the complicated story. Note that one of the singers is a young Cecilia Bartoli. It is late morning at the home of Dormant, Julia, Lucia, and their servant Germano. Dormant is the teacher and guardian of the beautiful Julia, and for various reasons, he is determined that she will marry Blanzac, despite her continual rejection of his advances. The fact is that Julia is already married to Blanzac's friend Dorville, who every midnight is able to exercise his conjugal rights because Julia lowers a ladder made of silk down to him from her bedroom window. Every morning he departs before the household gets up. But this morning, Dorville and Julia have lost track of the time, and as late as it is, he's still in the room and hidden somewhere. But owing to the attentions of Julia's cousin, Lucia, and the family servant Germano, Dorville can't make his escape, but must remain hidden. Finally, he gets to leave down the silken ladder. Now they're awaiting the arrival of Blanzac, who's due to arrive at any minute in his quest to woo Julia. She is not happy about this, and she has devised a scheme to divert his amorous attentions to her cousin, Lucia. She intends to bring Lucia and Blanzac together, and she persuades Germano to help her. Germano is nosy and he's gossipy, sort of an Italian Niente.
Oddio! Oh, quanto son grata a tanto buon cuore, gran prove d'amore, t'attenti da me. Oh, quanto son grato a tanto buon cuore, gran prove d'amore, son queste per me. Oh, quanto son grata a tanto buon cuore, gran prove d'amore, t'attenti da me. Son grato, gran prove d'amore, t'attenti da me. Oh, quanto son nato a tanto buon cuore, gran prove d'amore, son queste per me. Gran prove d'amore, son queste per me. Oh, quanto son grato! Oh, quanto son grato! Quanto buon cuore! Quanto buon cuore! Gran prove d'amore, son queste per me, sì, son queste per me, sì, 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 sì. Quanto son grato! Buon cuore, sì, gran prove d'amore, son queste per me. Gran prove
As luck would have it, Derville has run into Blanzac in the street and accompanies him back to the house. Derville desperately tries to persuade him that Julia is not looking for a husband, but doesn't tell him it is because she is already married to him. Unfortunately, this only has the effect of making Blanzac more determined and more confident of success. But he is insecure in his wooing skills and suggests that Dorville might care to hide when he is courting Julia and give him some feedback afterwards about his technique. Dorville agrees to do this, but is somewhat nervous because he wants to see how his wife responds to this man's attentions. Consequently, when Julia enters, her meeting with Blanzac is being overheard by her husband and the oppressible servant Germano. Julia decides to probe Blanzac to see if he would make a good and faithful husband for her cousin. Her questioning deceives all of the men who are listening in, thinking that she is genuinely interested in Blanzac. Dorville spots Germano, who has not done a very good job of hiding, and he emerges from his hiding place with Germano in tow.
condoco e il volle testimonio di mia felicità, sì, è il volle testimonio di mia felicità.
Insolente chi t'ha detto che io con la mi stava sposo? Chi? Io con la mi stava sposo?
Compatite mio signore, per istinto son curioso. Sì, per istinto son curioso. Compatite mio sì, per istinto son curioso. Dimmi qua chi t'ha ordinato metterma nei fatti miei. Chi metterma nei fatti miei? Ma sicuro che l'ho fatto sol per dare gusto a lei. Sì, sol per dare gusto a lei. Ma sicuro che lo ha sol per dare gusto a lei.
Io che c'entro se ciascuno qui di te si chiama offeso? Che se ciascun si chiama offeso?
Padroncina, perdonate, avrò forse malinteso. Sì, avrò forse malinteso.
Insolente!
Compatite, dimmi un poco. Ma pazienza.
Io che c'entro?
Padroncina,
Insolente!
perdonate, ma pazienza, dimmi un poco. Perché cazzo stiamo parlando? Vedi, non la mia ragione. Bella mancia che ho pigliato alla testa in confusione. Traballare, pipipà. Traballare, pipipà. Alla testa in confusione. Traballare, pipipà. Sì, la testa in confusione. Traballare, pipipà.
The stage has been set for a wonderful Rossinian quartet. Blanzac is finally alone with Lucia and realizes he is actually in love with her and not with Julia. And Lucia, who has loved Blanzac for some time, is absolutely delighted.
Sento d'amore nell'anima un voce di me, il voce inghira te, lo sento, che il voce inghira te, all'orsa un caro sposo messo al fianco mio. Quanto nel cordo sia, sai a quanti capir, all'orsa un caro sposo avessi al fianco mio. Quanto nel cordo sia, sai a capir, sai a capir.
It is now late evening. Julia is desperate for Derville to arrive at midnight so that she can explain the reason why she was questioning Blanzac so closely about marriage. She lowers the silken ladder for him. Once again, the servant Germano is there, and he observes that his mistress is planning an assignation using the ladder. He is unaware, of course, that it is with Derville, Julia's husband. He can only assume that it is with Blanzac, and plans to hide once more. When Blanzac appears too early, he tells him to use the ladder and to come back at midnight.
Una scala, la padrona, terza dirvi caderà. Poi intanto che sarete, poi direte, poi farete, direte, farete. Io non cerco i fatti vostri. E sarà quel che sarà, succubita di te e metti bravissimo, succubita di te e metti bravissimo, argutissimo, bravissimo.
Needless to say, what happens at midnight is that everybody shows up in Julia's bedroom. Dorville, Blanzac, Germano, and even Lucia, who thinks Blanzac is there to see her. It's time for a great Rossini finale. Everyone is aghast when Dormant, Julia's guardian, who has been woken by the noise, enters in his nightshirt. But seeing the way everything has turned out for the best, he quickly forgives the couples for their underhand behavior, and all ends in general rejoicing. Two happy couples, a troublesome old man and a meddlesome young servant.
Tiriamo innanzi un capo. Che ci son?
Cercamo!
Un altro, di che fai? Sapeva che qui dovea seguire un rendezvous e venni ad imparare. Lucilla